Then I'm going to start letting people in as soon as Zoom figures it out for itself. All right. I think Zoom has just figured it out. We are now live on Facebook. I'm going to admit everybody. I'm going to remember to start an actual recording because I never do. Hi, y'all. Welcome in.
Hello, everybody.
Now, typically people, kind of start trickling in. We'll let them in as they get in there, and we are live on Facebook. So I don't, are you on? You are on Facebook. Yes, Chris?
Me? Yeah.
All right.
I have a clinic website, a clinic Facebook page, and a personal Facebook page.
I'm going to copy the link and I'm going to text it to you. I don't know if you can get it to your computer from there, but that's what it is. All right. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening. Happy Sunday. Welcome to another edition of AcuPoint's Black Acupuncture Meet and Greet, where you get to meet a different Black acupuncturist from all over the country. Today, I am super excited because I have one of my favorite people here. This is Chris Randall. This is the guy that I go see when stuff hurts me. I drive 2 hours away to go see him for a treatment. So he is truly wonderful, and I'm so excited to have him. Thank you so much for joining us today, Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So today's topic is sports medicine, which is another specialized branch of acupuncture. And as you guys know, we all come together on Sunday to meet a different Black acupuncturist simply so that you guys can see what we do and what we look like and the fact that we're not unicorns. So, Chris Randall, how long have you been an acupuncturist?
I have been involved in Chinese medicine for 30 years. And that's, I'll say, Chinese medicine, as I always tell patients, as I always tell my students and my interns and all the talks that I give around various places, the hospital and so forth, Chinese medicine, or I'll say Eastern medicine, is much bigger than just acupuncture. So, so I'll say I've had my license to practice acupuncture since 2007. But I've been practicing Chinese medicine through Tai Chi and Tui Na and nutrition for 30 years, since 1990. I was introduced to it when I was really when I was a senior in high school. And then I really started practicing when I was a freshman in college. I had been doing hard martial arts, and one day my friend's father, who's from mainland China, was doing this stuff that I didn't quite recognize because it was really soft. It was gentle. It was different than what I'd been doing, which was Muay Thai, kind of, Thai boxing and kicking punching bags and throwing jabs. And before that, I had done Hapkido. And so I'd done martial stuff since I was 7. And so I don't even actually include that. My 30 years really starts when I got to college, when I was 18. But I realized that the real power was in the soft arts, not in the hard arts. I mean, hard arts are great, but in order to really be excellent and proficient at that, you sort of have to be, you have to rely on muscular strength. Mm-hmm. Of course, after a long time of doing hard arts and building up muscles and building up speed, you develop chi, and that's true, that's real. But when you start out with internal arts, you begin by developing chi. That's your focus. And then the power and the force and the speed all comes later. So it's sort of I guess a different approach. You don't develop you're not focusing on speed, you're focusing on the development of chi, and by that we mean bioelectricity. So I discovered this when I was 18. I got to my very first Tai Chi class was when I was 7. That's how I knew that I wanted to do martial arts. But when I was 7, it was too slow. So I had to do something a little bit faster. But when I was 18, I got to class and my teacher said on the first day, if you want to learn the martial art, then you have to learn the healing art. If you want to learn the yang, then you have to learn the yin. And it only made sense. Yin and yang go together. So I started learning the yin then when I was 18, and that began with learning Tui Na and learning about Chinese medicine, nutrition, diet therapy. And
so for those of you who don't know, Tui Na is a Chinese style of massage and myofascial manipulation. Just interrupting you for that real fast.
Thank you. Tui Na is a Chinese term that means, loosely it means push, pull, Tui and Na, push and pull. But Na isn't exactly pull, it's more pluck. So you pull and you pluck tendons and really, and fascia and ligaments. And Tui is push. So Tui Na is kind of an orthopedic medical massage. And in fact, in China, there are hospitals, Tui Na hospitals, that just do, well, I mean, they do Tui Na and many other things, orthopedic things. But, you know, I did one of my rounds when I was there for a semester. I did one of my rounds in a Tui Na hospital, which was so sweet. So to learn that, I mean, I'd already been doing it since I was 18, but to see it in China and to get it done in a Tui Na hospital, that was just awesome. So I would go there for a regular treatment myself as a patient. It was right next door to my hotel. So, so you asked me how long have I been an acupuncturist?
You've been a healer for 30 years. That works.
Yes. Too true.
All right. So where did you go to formalize your traditional Chinese medical education? What school did you go to?
I went to ACTCM. Okay. But my education, that's American College of Traditional Chinese Medicine in San Francisco. But my real education began, as I said, when I was 18. So working with my Sifu, with my master teacher, who is a healer and a martial arts master, and watching him work on people and heal people. And there was this one point where I really sort of mark as my eye-opening. It was my aha moment. And it was probably 6 years, I believe it was my 6th year. So I was the assistant teacher in class. I'd been doing it at that point for 6 years. I was beginning to become proficient, which when you practice internal martial arts, you're not immediately proficient. You don't get a black belt in 1 year or 2 years. You know, it doesn't happen that way. In fact, there are no belts, but you don't reach that level very quickly. It takes 10 years to be able to be martially proficient, at least 10 years. But in about my 6th year, a woman came to class who was paralyzed, and one of her legs didn't work. It was her left leg. And she had been paralyzed from an internal medicine disease called MS, multiple sclerosis. And she'd been paralyzed for 7 years. She was a patient at the University of Chicago Hospital, which is where I went to school. And which University of Chicago is an excellent hospital, as you know, most people probably don't know that, but their tagline is they call themselves, I should say, the pinnacle of medicine. But what I saw was that even the pinnacle of medicine couldn't really help this woman. And she had top level care. I mean, she wasn't a nobody. She was the wife of the head of the physics department. So, so she had top level care, and still she was going to simply continue to degenerate. And the only reason why she came to the Tai Chi class is because her son had stumbled upon it a year earlier and said, Mom, this teacher, this Sifu is pretty amazing. You got to come try this class. There's no reason not to. I mean, what's it going to hurt? So she came, even though she was opposed. She didn't really want to do it. I didn't find that out until later. She didn't really want to come, but she didn't have anything to lose. The reason why she didn't want to come, I'll say as a quick aside, is because she is a Baptist minister. And so she did not want to come to this Eastern healing practice, this Eastern class. To many of her flock, it was quote unquote the devil. But again, she didn't have anything to lose. And she came, and by the way, I'm not divulging anything that she would not want to say as a patient, because she has in fact written her own story. She's written a book about this, which it's just pretty amazing book. I mean, it's great. She tells her story from the time she first felt MS. And so I got to see her when she came, and she first felt it when she was 19. And then I think when she came to class, she was already over 50. So she goes through her whole story, but I got to witness what happened after being paralyzed 7 years. She came to see my Sifu, and he worked on her doing Tui Na and needles and herbs. And the big thing, well, they were all big, but really big was the nutrition therapy, the Chinese medical nutrition therapy. So she changed her diet. She was doing exercise. She got needles. She did herbs, got Tui Na regularly. So she did all these things. And for the first time in 7 years, she was able to feel her leg again. And that happened within 3 months of her coming to class. And my teacher would work on her and simply opened up the joints that allowed for blood to flow and allowed for the nerves, the nerve transduction to proceed forward. Yeah. Down her leg. So she could feel her leg for the first time in 7 years. She came to class every week. In fact, she was coming 3 times a week. I taught the Saturday class. So she came on Saturday, she came on Sunday when my teacher taught, she came on Thursday when my teacher was teaching, and she sat at the back of class and she did everything that she could do. She did whatever Tai Chi moves she could from a chair or from her walker. And, she would walk in with the little 4-leg walker thing with the tennis balls. And basically I got to watch this happen. This lady started walking again, and I said, holy moly. I didn't say moly, I used an expletive. I have to learn this medicine. My path had been, the thing that I had been looking at was going to the Chicago School of Osteopathic Medicine. So I'd been looking at Western medicine. But this opened my eyes that, ancient medicine had something that perhaps you couldn't get to with just pharmaceuticals, or just, even what the University of Chicago had to offer her. Osteopathic medicine, osteopathic stuff, OMM, osteopathic manual manipulations, is more like Tui Na than it is like Western medicine school. It's not just pharmaceuticals, but they don't have herbs and they don't have needles and many other things. So I said, all right, let me check this out. Let me look into this route. So that was my real aha, was watching this happen. So probably after 2 years, I remember when this woman who had been in a wheelchair, and her family had a van, and they had a thing that raised and lowered so her wheelchair could go up onto the van into the back. When they got rid of the lift and they got rid of the placard, the
Yes.
disabled placard. I mean, it was like shocking. So check out her book. Her name is Anna York, and from disability, it's called Rise Up: From Disability and Despair to Rejuvenation, something like that. But Rise Up, Anna York. And surprisingly, she mentions my name in there as like a, one of her teachers, but really it was my Sifu who did the work. It wasn't me, but I got to watch it. And that's what made me say, all right, this Eastern medicine stuff is real stuff.
Amazing.
But what I got from that was that it's not limited, as we so often think, to needles. And what I always tell students is that acupuncture is just the most famous part of Chinese medicine. It's not the primary part of Chinese medicine. The primary part, not surprisingly, is what we do for ourselves. That is to say, nutrition. There are 5 branches in Chinese medicine. Number 1 is nutrition. Number 2 is exercise. Number 3 is herbs. And then comes, and you can alternate these two, but number 4, acupuncture is either number 4 or number 5. And then the other is the physical medicine, the Tui Na. As I said, the orthopedic medical massage, the Tui Na, Gua Sha, cupping, moxibustion, the other newish electrostim things that we do. But what you do for yourself is primary. And I tell this to every new patient. I don't care who they are. I say our 3,000-year-old textbook says you are your own best doctor.
Yes.
I'm not your best doctor. You are your own best doctor. And the only way that you can be your own best doctor is by monitoring what you put into your body every day and how you move your body every day. And then you can start adding in herbs, which of course then requires somebody to prescribe them for you. You can't just, as so many people do, Google it and then become an herbalist. It doesn't quite work that way, as most people on this phone call will know. And then comes the other things. Then comes the more invasive things, or as I often will say, the things that require someone else. So you have agency, and you can do things for yourself from the first level, from 1 all the way down to 4, and then 5 is acupuncture. So you can do your own nutrition, you have to eat your own exercise. You have to take the herbs, no matter what somebody prescribes, you still got to take them, which is one of the hardest things to get people to do, is to be a compliant patient. And then number 4, totally, listen, all of us. I always tell people, nutrition is one of the hardest things. It's so easy to think that we know how to eat right, or that we know what is quote unquote good food. But in Chinese medicine, nutrition, they say there is no such thing as good or bad food. It's only good or bad for you.
Yes.
Meaning for your constitution. So, a baby doesn't eat the same as a kid, who doesn't eat the same as an adult or a grandparent. They all eat differently because the constitutions change, yin and yang change. Yin deficiency grows as you get older, and yang deficiency for that matter. Yang is on the rise and so what you eat is based on your constitution. So, so food changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell my clients you need a good food vocabulary, and you have to be an active participant in your own self-healing, or you're going to be an active participant in your own self-destruction. So you gotta definitely take that particular bull by the horns. That is an amazing story with us, Chris Randall. Thank you so very much for sharing that. And I will go look for that book. Right.
Yes.
Right. I have
a copy for you.
Oh, thank you. When I finally schedule my appointment to get back down there, I'll pick it up.
Yes, totally. I keep copies of it because to me, it's what motivated me. And so I use it to motivate patients as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing. So one of your many expertise, not your only one, is sports medicine itself, which is kind of its own little particular branch of physical medicine and acupuncture and the way that you go about doing things. And I know that our viewers today are really interested in hearing a little bit more about that part of what you do.
About the sports medicine part?
About the sports medicine part. Come on, that is so exciting. You may not think it's exciting, but I think it's exciting. And that's what everybody's watching for today, to hear more about the amazing things that this medicine is able to do for physical aches and pains, very much like with this particular client who was able to get up after being paralyzed for a number of years. And while that may not have been specifically sports medicine, it is a branch of this medicine that not everybody knows all that well, and it is something that you specialize in.
Yeah, well, I would say that that is sports medicine. In fact, I started doing sports medicine really with my Sifu, because he worked on many different athletes. So I got to see that as a kid, 20 years ago or whatever. And when I was a young buck, and I got to—
You're not old.
Thank you for saying that, Tanisha. Listen, I work with like 20-year-old, 25-year-old. I don't feel old, even when I'm with these young players who are like in the prime of their life. I don't feel old. I go in with my hat cocked backwards, and I feel like a kid. It's pretty fun. But we were working on athletes, and so I got introduced to that when I was then 18, 19, 20. And a lot of it was with other martial artists. So I was in the martial arts community, and we worked on football players and basketball players, college athletes, and some pro athletes, semi-pro. Chicago has a lot. There's lots of different athletes all around Chicago, as you probably are aware. It's famous, Chicago. So sports medicine is, particularly, I'll say, in terms of acupuncture, is not unique. That is to say, anybody who goes to— I say that, but of course my sports medicine acupuncture teacher would not agree with that.
I wouldn't agree with you either. Like, I know we learned quite a bit of things about where muscle insertions and origins and motor points are. Like, I don't do what you do, and I do very well. But I still don't do what you do. It's still a different little bit of a breed of an acupuncture specialty.
Well, so I studied with Matt Callison, who does the SMAC program, Sports Medicine Acupuncture Certification. And it is an intense 2-year program, or I did it over 2 years, but I guess you can do it in a year, but it is a lot. It's like almost 300 hours with cadaver labs, and pretty phenomenal stuff. In fact, I'm signed up to do it again. I can't wait. This weekend, he's doing an online version. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's in San Diego, but it's the first time that he's doing it online for obvious reasons. And I'm excited. That means I can retake one of the sections without having to fly to San Diego. So sports medicine acupuncture there's a lot of Western ideas that are involved in it. But what I would say is that Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine, you can understand it easily from a Western perspective. The reason why we don't learn it that way, not in particular when we're going through TCM school, is because there's too much to learn. And you just have to be able to know the Chinese medicine aspect of it in order to be able to pass the test, but to pass the California licensing exam or the national NCCAOM exam. So you got to know the TCM stuff, but we know for sure that all you have to do is open up CAM and, find all of these. It's right there. I mean, the muscles and the sinews, the sinew channels and the musculotendon channels, all of that is what's part of sports medicine acupuncture, which is what I really appreciate. So what we call these Ashur points, well, that's what these motor points are. They're Ashur points. And we're often in the West, as Western TCM students, we learn that Ashur means a painful point, and that's it. But Ashur really means and sure, that's it. So now in school we called that the shit points. Oh, I'm sorry, no, I'm not supposed to say that. So that's how we talked about it in school. However, the real translation of Ashur is sure, that's it, or it is, that's it. The reason that that's it is because when you hit an Ashur point, you can both see and feel a muscular fasciculation. Now, we call that, getting the twitch response, or, but we're working on points that have very low resistance to electrical flow. And so when you hit those points, or when you get those places where the nerves, and I'll tell you, in ancient China, they used the exact same post-mortem anatomy. I mean, the human body hasn't changed that much in 5,000, 10,000 years. I mean, maybe in 5 million years, but maybe in 1 billion years. Can you hear me? You're okay. But it hasn't changed that much. So in ancient China, even if we're talking about 5,000 years ago, the human body is the same. So if you remove the skin, they were aware of that as well. So it wasn't like there was some amorphous idea of, let's say, meridians that, that they didn't fully understand about anatomy. That's ridiculous. The human body is the same now as it was then. The Western world doesn't understand. I mean, advances have been made, no question, but we're still learning things that have already been known for thousands of years. We're finding out things now that have been known a long time ago. Case in point, there's a new, a quote unquote new ligament that was just discovered, 6 years ago, 7 years ago in the knee. Did that ligament just pop up? Of course it didn't. But we're still learning things. And they were using the same anatomy, and they understood things in a similar way. We can see, we see where the nerves are, and that helps us to understand what it is that they were talking about, and in terms of understanding the channels. Which, by the way, as an aside, something that I often will tell my students is that I don't use the word meridian, and I don't like it when people use that word, because the word meridian implies not real. The word meridian is a French word that means an invisible line. Well, channels are not invisible. And we can see if you've ever been to one of these Body Worlds exhibits, or where they cut the, peel away very delicately, or show you just the nervous system, you can see the network there. So when we talk about a network of channels, they weren't making that up out of nowhere. That was coming from what they could see. They did anatomy, they did dissections, and they could see it. It's not a coincidence that they talked about the connections between all these things, and then lo and behold, right underneath the skin, here are the connections between all of these this nervous network. That's not a coincidence.
No.
They saw it. So so this is old. So the reason why I'm talking about all of this and laying this out as a background is because sports medicine is like, let's say it's like Apple computers. Apple doesn't invent anything. And as Steve Jobs would say, we don't invent, we innovate. So they take things that are already out there, things that are already made, and then they innovate on those things. And what we've done in recent years, the West as well, the West doing it, and Eastern medicine as well, just like how we use electricity now, which of course we didn't have electrostim machines 5,000 years ago, but we use that now. There's been many innovations. So we're like Apple computers in that way, and sports medicine acupuncture is sort of like that. It's an innovation that some very insightful Chinese medicine doctors have led that path. And one of those people is Matt Callison, and another is Whitfield Reeves, who many people on this call will have heard of Whitfield, because those two are sort of the biggest heavy hitters. And they took it and they said, all right, well, let's study. And by the way, there's a teacher also at ACTCM, who his name is Alon Marcus, who was my very first sports medicine teacher. And he's been at it for a long time. And he just retired actually last year. But he wrote 2 Western medicine anatomy books. And yeah, which are not in print anymore, but yeah, but you can probably find it on Amazon. He's great. Also went to the University of Chicago like me. And he's also a martial artist. He's a longtime Aikidoka. So I did some Aikido with him. We've been to workshops together. But all of that is to say that Western anatomy, or Western understanding of anatomy, is closely tied to how we talk about sports medicine acupuncture today. And I learned, one thing that Alon Marcus said when I took that first class with him was, you can never learn enough anatomy. And too true. Boy, I mean, speaking of this new ligament that was found in the knee, the ALL, I mean, you can never learn enough anatomy. And you learn about anatomy not just by studying the anatomy books, that's true for sure, but then you have to feel, you have to palpate, because bodies are different. And there's more, muscular articulations and joint articulations. And I know that very well because I've worked for 10 years at Highland Hospital. So I've seen, morbidly obese patients who, Highland Hospital is a county hospital. So you're going to have poor people who come there. So I've had the privilege of working with the poor population and with the not ultra rich, but millionaires in terms of these young athletes. They're not ultra rich. Ultra rich would be like the 1%ers. That's not these dudes. But these dudes are specimens. I mean, they are, fit, of specimens of fitness, totally fit. So getting to see those muscular articulations, feel and work with that versus, somebody who's, 400 pounds and not muscular, not 400 pounds of muscle. And yet they're taking, 15 pharmaceutical drugs and blah, blah, blah. So internal medicine stuff at the hospital, which is another conversation. But working with the athletes, and we can talk about the internal medicine stuff too, because that's also
I want you to come back and talk about oncology. You promise?
Yes, we can talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. but working with these athletes is phenomenal because seeing the response that you get from you know, palpation, from finger placement, acupressure, and from needle placement, um, and how quickly they heal, um, and well, I'll talk about the nutrition in a second, which is also pretty big and pretty important in terms of in terms of athletic performance and healing. But in terms of the acupuncture aspect, getting to put needles in and have a response that happens so fast, and they feel a change and you see a change, and and then you get to turn on the TV and watch them running better now, and you can see it right there in front of you. And it's pretty. My team didn't do so great today, and you probably didn't follow it, but
well,
we
I don't know, a
lost.
single solitary thing. There are men in tight clothing who chase a ball up and down a grassy field. That's the end of football for me.
I understand. Yeah. But if you grow up practicing, playing, throwing, catching balls, all that stuff is pretty similar. It's pretty fun to watch, and to watch men and women who get to be just expert at what they do, and then getting to help those experts at being even better experts.
That is such a privilege.
Oh, it's such a privilege. I mean, I'm honored to be able to do it. So it's great, being able to, see something happen, or see, I remember when the very first time that I saw cupping marks on Stephen Curry on the court, and I wasn't really conscious of it, but then it was all over like the acupuncture, Facebook, and Twitter, and I was like, whoa, I put those cupping marks there. And and it was great to see that what I was doing was having an impact. And totally, and I love basketball, and so and I really, I mean, I play basketball, I don't really play football, but I really enjoy watching the football. But having an impact in terms of people who are on this call who are students or practitioners, there's so much to learn in terms of the human body. You never, not that you don't become an expert, I could say, yes, I'm an expert in something. I'm not quite sure what that is. I mean, am I an expert in sports medicine? Well, yes, but what I always tell people is it doesn't end. You don't, just because you work with the top athletes doesn't mean that it's over. And it truly, truly is not. And I remember there was an herbalist named Dr. Dr. Fung, and he was well known in the TCM community, and he was still studying when he was 95, and he was working downtown Oakland here. He was still at the Draylen Tong Herbs at the corner of 10th and Webster, working with Henry, who many people will know from the East Bay, will know Henry the herbalist. You don't stop studying. It doesn't stop. Like Alon Marcus said, you can never learn enough anatomy, and you find out so much. And I do with these players. I mean, there's things that will work on some guys that will work on, let's say, running backs or fullbacks, that might not work the same for the offensive line, that because they work on different things. While somebody's working on speed, on their, how fast they run and catch, another guy is working on how well they can block and hold another dude, and how well they can push. And so their sinew channels are differently developed.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're in school and you're listening to this talk and you're a TCM student, you're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about sinew channels, but because that's not what's on the test.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pass the test. If you don't pass the test, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. You can't do what you want to do, and you can't practice what you love if you don't pass the test. So you got to learn the other stuff, learn the TCM, learn the, point prescriptions and, that stuff, and not to poo-poo that stuff, but there's so much more. Yeah, so much more. And the sports medicine, what we're calling sports medicine acupuncture, is an example of that. And if you can learn, and this is something that I got from Matt Callison, which is one of the reasons why I so appreciated studying with him, is that he doesn't just simply say, this is about learning where the MMPs, where are the myotomal motor points, where are the motor points? Yes, you can learn, memorize motor points, trigger points and Janet Travell, and you can learn those things, but that's limited. That's so limited. It's not only about motor points, it's about how the human corpus works and how it's all tied together. And it's never more obvious than when you work with any patient, but I'll say an athlete, and you're doing working some point way farther down the channel and having an impact up the channel, and they're shocked. You might be shocked too, but they're shocked. Like,
I love distal needling. Love it. I just treated a gout patient with some distal needling. She's just like, how does that work? And I'm like, long story.
Right. Totally.
So and before we run out of time, I can sit here and listen to you for the next 2 or 3 hours, and I will sit and listen to you for the next 2 or 3 hours, but I don't know if we're going to keep all of our audience for the next 2 or 3 hours.
Right.
A couple of slides that you wanted to share, and this is about the time when I ask people, if you have questions, or on Facebook land, or over here in Zoom with
my God.
Gabrielle or Rachel, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. If you're in the Zoom chat with us, you can, unmute yourself and join us and ask a question of Chris. I'd always like to give people an opportunity to interact with our famous unicorn Black acupuncturist. And you
I don't know about famous.
Well, I'm going to make you famous. How about that? You are such your own personal Google search of information. I want people to have an opportunity to ask questions. So keep going. And then as the questions come in, I will totally let you know what they are. So are there any questions from Gabriella or Rachel? And then if you want to share your slides, feel free to bring those on, and you don't have to. It's completely up to you all.
Okay. Yes, Gabby Corbello. Hi, Gabby. I know her. She's a student. So let's see. So I am sorry, I'm going on and on. I had no idea that we were at almost 5:45.
Because you tell good stories.
Yes, because I talk and talk and talk. I have so many more stories to tell you.
I'll bring you back. You can tell them all.
Okay. Let me see. How can I show these slides? Does that you have to give me permission?
If you float, I've already given you permission. If you float your mouse around, at the bottom is a green button.
Oh, share content. Is that it? Okay.
Share
so
screen.
I'm gonna click.
Yep.
Share screen. Okay, I got it.
And then it's going to give you a little menu of
all right
on your computer, and you pick
the
one that you want to share, and then you click share.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to do this. Screen process, Zoom, start broadcast, screen broadcast. Let's see.
Thank you for sharing. It is wonderful hearing his story. Like, I'm inspired.
Here we go. Okay. So tell me, can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, and there was a green elephant, and now we have some other cool things that have just popped up on the screen.
Totally. Okay. So this is a little presentation that I put together to teach to my interns about what it is, one of the things that we're doing in terms of sports medicine acupuncture. And these come from the textbook that my teacher, Matt Callison, wrote. Can you see the picture?
Yep, we sure can.
Okay, all right. So now you had been asking earlier about points and what points I might like to use. Well, what you see here is the Huatou Jiaji points. And this is, you know, some vertebra. And the Huatou point, the Jiaji point, which is 0.5 cun lateral to the lower border of the vertebral process, you can see, and here we are talking about the anatomy and why it is that Chinese medicine doctors so many years ago, and I'll say even pre-China, but we won't get into that. That's a story for another time. Might have understood this whole network of channels. And you can see when you do a Huatou Jiaji point, you're going half a cun away from the vertebral process or the lower border of the vertebral process, that you're hitting that, you see the medial and lateral branches of the dorsal primary nerve. So the dorsal primary nerve root coming out, and then you hit that, and you're having an impact on, by the way, there's the Huatou, there's the inner UB channel point and the outer UB channel point. So they all are connecting to the same thing, which is why, you know, UB 13 is connected to UB 42, which is connected to the Huatou Jiaji of the T3 vertebra. And why all of those, the question then becomes, well, why is UB 13? Why does that have anything to do? Why is that the transport point for the lungs? Why is that the back shoe point for the lungs? Well, we find out here, and you can even see where that goes. And there's the Huatou Jiaji point of T9 and the back shoe point UB18, which we know is the liver back shoe point. What you can see, let me see, I'm making it bigger, I'm focusing in, but what you can see is that goes around. So you're hitting a branch, but that branch goes from the primary dorsal nerve root and all the way around the cavity towards the front, and then connects up with the liver 14, the front move point of the liver. And there's the picture of the liver. You can see that in the center. That's the liver, which is also connected to the nerve root that comes out of T9, the primary dorsal root that's coming out of the lower border of T9, the T9 vertebral process. So that's where it's going. So so when we say that that these are meridians, we're suggesting that this isn't real. But when we talk about it in terms of channels, and what the verbiage that I use, and words are important, words matter. The verbiage that I use is nerve channels, because patients understand that. And when you look at this picture, you can see that exactly. So you do the Huatou Jiaji point of T9, well, you're affecting the primary dorsal nerve root at T9, and you can see that it goes in to affect the liver as well as going all the way around to the front. So when we say, you know, one of our phrases from the Neijing is treat the back to treat the front, or treat the front to treat the back, treat the yin to treat the yang, and yang to treat the yin. And here is the connection showing us that. And so this becomes, using Huatou Jiaji points is one of my favorite things to do, because you have an impact not just on the limited, quote unquote, limited things that we're looking at and talking about right now, but also all of the other millions of things that that are connected to that vertebral segment to that level. So T9 is not only connected to the liver, it's connected to a million other things too. Because as we know, we have a trillion more than that. I mean, it's between 100 and 300 trillion nerve cells. You're going to connect to so many things. So there you have a little glimpse at the Huatou Jiaji points and how they come around to the front and connect with the front mu points and the back shu points. So this sort of makes it clear. Now, it's Tanisha, I don't want to over talk. It's 5:50.
But we do have one question that's a perfect little segue to let in one question. We only have one that's come in so far, and it's from Rachel. She says, do you always do a combo of cupping, gua sha, tui na, and acupuncture in treating athletes, or is acupuncture enough?
It's a good question. Acupuncture can be enough, and I'll say that it always depends on the patient. And for me, I rarely do only one thing, and that's because I believe in integrative medicine. I believe that what we're working on is multifaceted. You know, we talk about these. You talk about the 5 branches. So, you know, I'll ask players about their nutrition, and in fact, I test their nutrition. I
remember that.
I can talk about the. Yes, exactly.
I mean, like that thing.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing to be able to test people's nutrition score, to see how well they actually are doing with the ultimate nutritional lie detector test. So nutrition, but doing gua sha is great, and some form of manual manipulation, some form of tui na. And I have this tool, which you may have seen this, Tanisha, this wire brush, this old, it's at least 2,500 years old. It's a metal brush that looks like a huge whisk. And it's very heavy and has these metal stainless steel dowels, and they're all wrapped together. And I use that on the bone. So I use that almost all the time, especially with athletes, just because it strengthens the bones and the connective tissue. Gua sha, not on everybody, and cupping, not on everybody, but almost always some form of tui na, always needles, and almost always the wire brush, which is kind of like tui na, but it's you know, working on bones and connective tissue. So
who sold me on the idea of a mechanical massage device, because before then I was like, no, use your hands, and I was like, this thing is great, I'm gonna go get one immediately. So
oh yeah. Well, listen, totally. Well, I mean, you simply can't do the same thing with your hands that you can with metal or wood or bamboo. They're bamboo brushes, and this is mostly what people have seen, because you can't get a wire brush in the US. They don't make them here. Mine came from Taiwan, and it's an old martial arts tool. So I don't know why it's not sold here or made here, but you can't do the same thing. Bamboo you can get, and the bamboo just gets sort of the skin level, and then you can use wood, and that goes deeper muscularly. You can get the bone as well with the wood, but when you use metal, especially when you use multiple metal rods together, you get a vibration, you get an electrical force, you get a vibrational force. It basically is what we're hearing about in terms of vibration therapy, which is a new sort of term, but obviously it's very old. But you're doing the wire brush, gets the vibration into the bone, and when you do that, it is creating electrical sparks, and that's called piezoelectricity. And that piezoelectricity generates bone cell growth and calcium uptake. And in fact, when you do it on the long bones, you're generating blood cell growth, because that's where blood cells are born, is in the long bones. So doing that not only helps your bones to get stronger, which is why they did it, 2,000-3,000 years ago, is to make your bones stronger so you could be a stronger, more efficient fighter. Turns out it also has medical purpose as well, healing purpose as well, because when your bones are stronger and your blood is stronger, you simply are healthier. Yeah, you're a stronger person and you live longer. So longevity was always the goal. And using the wire brush and doing what we call iron shirt qigong, by making yourself an iron shirt, making your body, making your torso into an iron shirt, you're not only making yourself stronger as a martial artist, you're making yourself healthier as a human being. Are there any more questions?
Nope. I think that people are just really just enamored with listening.
Okay.
I am. I just want to listen.
Okay. Well,
any more questions, we'll go a little bit longer over in Facebook land or here on the Zoom call with us. If anybody wants to ask anything, now would totally be the time. Welcome back.
Okay. Thank you. Can you see me now?
Yes, I can. You're back. Okay,
good. All right. All right. There we go. Boy, sports medicine, that is it's a big topic, and I'm very fortunate to be doing it and to be working with these guys. And in fact, I'm going to treat some players out of town who just got out of the NBA bubble and are like, wow, I was in that bubble. Can you come do some work, do your magic, get me back right again. So this stuff, this medicine, this ancient medicine has found such a bigger, broader audience. And I think the sports world is part of the reason. Oprah's part of the reason for that too. But because she did it, she did it on her show, I don't know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And
the Dr. Oz's and some of the other stars. We got Snoop Dogg, yes, Beyonce, and a couple of other people who are finally beginning to talk about the benefits that they received from utilizing traditional East Asian medicine and all formats. And we think about it, as you said, just being needles, but it's not just needles. Like it is, we are lifestyle changers. There's a lot to go into it. There's no gas tank. You can't expect the car to go anywhere.
That's right. That's right. Well, what's a funny thing is that when I talk to groups of TCM students, it has happened so often that even Chinese medicine students who are in Chinese medicine school don't know the 5 branches of Chinese medicine. When I say, what are the 5 branches of Chinese medicine? Even students who go to 5 branches university don't know what the 5 branches are, because we don't talk about it. We focus on the needles the same way that everybody else focuses on the needles, and everybody else thinks that what we do is needles. And that's true when I go and I do career day in the Oakland middle schools and high schools. I go around and do career day in the spring. And I always ask the students, I say, hi, my name is Chris Randall. I'm a Chinese medicine doctor. And they say, Chinese? You ain't Chinese. I say, no, Chinese medicine doctor. And, what does that mean to everybody? And the number one thing, the top 2 things they say are needles, of course, and herbs. And then I push them. And after asking questions, 10 minutes later, we finally get to the nutrition piece. Well, shockingly, we don't talk about it in TCM schools. Even though we learn it, it's not something that's at the top of our mind, even though it's in the Neijing.
I had a slightly different, weird experience in TCM school where I was going to flunk out because I was insisting on being this raw foodist, vegan, vegetarian kind of thing. And my body was like literally shutting down from it. And my dean looked at me in an appointment. She's just like, so your choices are, you can go upstairs to the nutrition people and see if they can help you with some tablets. you can go eat a steak and get some chi and blood into your body, or you can fail my program. Which of these three things are you going to choose? And from that point forward, I became enamored with increasing my own food vocabulary, because I was obviously unable to meet my own nutritional needs in a way that I thought was healthy, and the way that it was being presented as healthy and ideal. And so I tell my clients, it's like, you can't even get herbs out of me on your first appointment. Like, we're going to see what changes in your diet and lifestyle do. And then whatever's left, we will address with herbs.
Hello, of course. I'm with you.
Give me it. No, I can't. Can't you just go in your kitchen and see what kind of magic you can whip up for yourself?
Right,
So,
right.
that's important. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's super important to be able to learn how to drive your own personal Lamborghini that we live in every day. And if you can't figure out the idiosyncrasies of driving your own personal Lamborghini every day, then you can't get mad when you got a busted something because you've driven over a giant pothole daily.
Right, right. Totally. What I tell people is this. I have patients who come and they say, you know, oh, I don't need to come in. It's nothing's wrong with me. Nothing's hurting. And I say, well, listen, the American ethos is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I say, and the ancient, not just East Asian, but not just Asian, many philosophies say, don't let it get broke. And if you practice prevention, it won't get broke and you don't have to worry about fixing it. Make sure that you ask yourself this question: what do I put into my body every day, and how do I move my body every day? And I always add, it's always three for me. What do you put into your body every day? How do you move your body every day? And how do you think every day? That's it. Those are my core three principles for healing.
Thank you. That is awesome and amazing. I have enjoyed having you on so very much. I have enjoyed listening to all your stories. I wish I could listen to a few more of these stories, but you know, you probably have to do family time at some point in time, and sooner or later my munchkin's going to come back and I'll have family time too. Thank you guys again for joining us on AcuPoint's Black Acupuncture Meet and Greet. I'm checking to make sure that I've gotten all the questions. I do believe that I've gotten them. Next week, we're going to have a guy named Ian Cyrus who's going to come on, and he is like the Tai Chi master when you're talking about doing that internal martial arts and how to begin developing and cultivating the chi from within, as opposed to always being worried about how to develop and cultivate that yang chi from without. So Chris Randall, acupuncturist of the stars. I'm going to call you that. I'm going to see if we can get more stars. We're going to see if we can get somebody like Beyonce to come and look for you. I'm sure she has some sports injuries with all that wiggling around that she does oh so gracefully. Thank you all for my guests that have come and to join us today. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied. I'm a little tired. I look forward to having you back to hear a few more of your stories. And I will see you all next week at 5 p.m. for AcuPoint's Black Acupuncture Meet and Greet. Chris, if you can just stay on the line. Bye, Facebook land. I don't think I see any questions. I'm trying to make sure I don't see any questions. Nope, no questions. All right. Bye, Facebook. Right. Thank you, Gabriella and Rachel, for joining us.
Thanks, Gabriella and Rachel.
Right, we're gonna stop one.
Thanks, Ray.
Facebook, I'm gonna get rid of y'all too. All right, and stopping Facebook.